Greetings, Earthlings, and humans, and any other intelligent life forms that might be tuning in on whatever frequency, planet, or wavelength you're coming from. I'm glad you're here, and especially animals, the highest intelligent beings on this planet, far more intelligent than humans, of course, because they don't have to bullshit themselves every single day in order to feel the joy of living. Welcome to the Roseanne Barr podcast.
Oh, you see, my patience is growing thin.
Well, you know how I love to talk to geniuses, troublemakers, whistleblowers, dissenters, people with ideas that normally we don't get to hear because of the unified field of bullshit that is YouTube and all the internet media outlets. But I'm very excited today because we have a pioneer in the whole Epstein story, the first person to break the Epstein story, Nick Bryant. Hi, Nick. Thanks for being here.
Good to be with you, Roseanne and Jake.
Thank you for coming on.
So you were, in fact, the first person to break the whole Epstein story, and you did it way back when?
Well, there had been a number of articles about him molesting children, and there was a grand jury that found that he hadn't molested a single child, and that was in 2006, I believe. I went down there in 2012, and I acquired his little black book, and then I started calling victims in the black book. And they started telling me about being flown around and flown to an island. And at that point, I realized he was no longer a lone pedophile, but he ran a pedophile network. And so I took it back to New York. I took the black book back to New York City, and I live in the mecca of publishing. I thought for sure somebody would touch it. And of course, nobody did. And then in 2015, I hooked up with John Cook at Gawker, and we published both the black book. And by that time, I had flight logs too. So I was the first guy to publish the black book and the flight logs, which I think was a quantum leap in our understanding of Epstein. I wasn't the first guy to report about him, but I think I contributed quite a bit by publishing the black book and the flight logs.
How would you describe that evolutionary leap in human awareness in the United States and the world too? How would you describe that leap?
I think that there was a lot of denial. Although I had the black book and I had the flight logs, there was a lot of denial. And this was 2015. This was 4 years before his case broke nationally. And I'd written another book about a similar type of network called the Franklin Scandal. And there was a lot of skepticism around the Franklin Scandal. And with Epstein, I found the same skepticism. I would talk to editors or publishers, and it was like I could see the wheels turning in their brain. They would think to themselves, this is really a horrible story. I should help Nick Bryant expose this. Or I can just write Nick Bryant off as crazy and have a nice meal with my family tonight. And I was thinking that one of them, I knew a bunch of people in the media. I was thinking that one of them would have some courage, but everybody I knew in the media pretty much let me down.
You think it's because they chose to just want to live a quiet life instead of getting embroiled in the worst thing in the world?
Well, the thing about it is, people don't do their jobs. If people at the FBI did their jobs, people at the Department of Justice did their jobs, if people in journalism did their jobs, it would be a very, very different world. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But
don't you think we live in a world where now if people do their jobs, they are immediately fired or incarcerated?
Well, when I did my job, I was castigated. When that kind of, I spent 7 years on the Franklin Scandal, and I had as much proof as I could possibly have. I knew that the bar was very high on that, and I really wanted to make sure that it could withstand the scrutiny of just about anybody. And we published it, and there was just a fizz. We couldn't get anybody to really do anything with that book. And I'd spent 7 years on that book, and the book sales initially were really bad. I mean, they've gotten much better, but that was kind of a disheartening period of my life because I put so much work into this, and I had a
And we're talking about Boys Town, USA, where
yes,
the Republican machine of Nebraska was actually trafficking and sexually abusing these children, these boys at Boys Town, right? And taking them all the way to the White House, trafficking them.
yes. Boys Town was a smorgasbord for pedophiles in the 1980s, and they were trafficked. They were trafficked all over, but a lot of them were trafficked to Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., there was Craig Spence, who was a major power broker, and he had a mansion, and he was also a CIA asset. And every room in his mansion was fitted with a small pinhole camera. And his thing was blackmail, much like Epstein, audiovisual blackmail.
Well, is there any difference between the Franklin School scandal and the Epstein scandal? Did it just get bigger? But I mean, at its base, is it exactly the same or is it different?
Hey guys, it's Jake here. As you know, I'm an old middle-aged man who's graying and bald, and I have 2 daughters and a wife, and I need to take care of them. So life insurance is something that I look into all of the time. But as I was investigating and talking to my brother-in-law Josh, who many of you know from republiclifenow.com and the annuities program that we sold, the guy's a genius. He told me about a new product that is part of the life insurance, parachute, if you will. But it's called Living Benefits, and it's going to change the game. And I wanted to tell you about it because you guys got to get into it right now. And essentially what it is it's a life insurance policy. You pay it, the whole thing. And then if something, God forbid, happens and you, while you're alive, need that money, you don't have to wait until you're dead for it to go to your family when it could have helped save your life. With Living Benefits, you can access your own life insurance policy payout or whatever you want to call it while you're alive. Let's say you get a catastrophic illness or get caught on fire or something horrible happens. You can pull from your own life insurance policy and save your own life or do whatever you want, man. Buy a house, go to republiclifenow.com. Check it out. Make sure you ask for the Living Benefits life insurance because it's a separate part of life insurance. I don't want to get too technical, but just think about it. You could actually potentially save your own life with your own life insurance policy. It's a game changer, and I highly recommend you do it.
It's very similar. You've got aberrations in the Justice Department and FBI that allow pedophiles to skate. And
Yeah.
the thing about the Franklin scandal that makes it a little bit different is there were a couple of the FBI came in and really pressured the kids to recant their abuse. And 2 of them didn't.
Right.
One was Alicia Owen and one was Paul Benassi. And Alicia was indicted on 8 counts of perjury from the state grand jury, and Paul was indicted on 3 counts. So Paul was looking at 60 years, and Alicia was looking.
These are the victims.
What's that?
These are the victims who
yes.
came forward.
So Paul was looking at 60 years, and Alicia was looking at 160 years. And then she testified before a federal grand jury, and they tacked on 40 more years. So Alicia was looking at 200 years in prison. And
Wow.
For being a victim who came forward.
And she still wouldn't recant. And there was a kangaroo court that sentenced her to between 9 and 15 years in prison for not recanting her accounts of abuse. But the authorities really tried to destroy her because they put her in solitary confinement for 2 years. A kid. Wow. She was like 21 years old at that time, and they put her in solitary for 2 years. And as we know, that can really unravel people.
And she was PTSD.
What's that?
I was saying she was already post-traumatic from being a victim.
Yeah, she was victimized twice, and once by her pedophile perpetrators, and then by our government, our state, and the state of Nebraska, and the Department of Justice and FBI. A really horrific chapter in United States jurisprudence that they would gang up on this poor girl. And she just was going to tell her truth. And in the book, I really do show that she was definitely abused, and she wouldn't recant that. She's a real hero. Alicia Owen is a hero in the United States of America. A lot of people don't, most people don't even know her name.
I've never heard of
She's
her.
one of the.
She's still in prison.
No, she's out. And I run an organization called Epstein Justice, and we're trying to get justice for what we want is two relatively basic moral things. We want, if you cover up a crime, you're aiding and abetting that crime. We want to know why the government aided and abetted child trafficking, and we want the perpetrators to be prosecuted. And Alicia is actually a associate director of Epstein Justice. She's gone to school, graduated, I think it was summa cum laude, and she also happily married, owns a home. I mean, she is like one in a billion, really, I think that.
Yeah, really. And so is Audra that we had on last week. She's on the board too, isn't she?
She is on the staff also, yeah. I've got some really good people at Epstein Justice. I'm really, really happy how it's evolving.
Can people go there and help out, donate?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You can go to EpsteinJustice.com. We need donations. We definitely need donations. Okay. And then we also have, every month we have webinars where we teach people, give them the tools to pressure their legislators, because we're going to need that. And there's also a change.org petition that it would be great if people signed too. And that kind of change.org brings people together. We put it up like about 5 weeks ago. We've got over 30,000 signatures. And so that just shows that people are very concerned about this. And it's great. And actually, Epstein Justice, we've been trying to get congressional people to, what we want is a congressional commission, independent congressional commission, to investigate Epstein. And we want
a special prosecutor.
Well, we want a congressional commission, which is a little different than a special prosecutor, because a independent congressional commission could include civilians like me. That
Oh, cool. Yeah, I like that.
So, because if it just goes to a subcommittee, it's nothing's going to be done. If we just leave this to politicians, nothing is really going to happen. And so Epstein Justice, we're putting pressure on legislators, and we got our first legislator to get behind us a couple days ago, Thomas Massie, who proposed that there's an investigation into Epstein, and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, shut down Congress early, so that couldn't be voted on, and Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House. He's the third most powerful person constitutionally in the United States, and he's shutting down.
I don't know about him sometimes.
Do you think that you shut Congress down to avoid this particular vote?
Yes, I think that, unfortunately, I think that our political system, and I've written, the Franklin scandal shows this, and I also wrote a book called Confessions of a DC Madam, The Politics of Sex, Lies, and Blackmail. And it was about a guy who ran a gay escort service, and CIA assets would use his escorts to compromise closeted politicians. So I think that a lot of our politicians are compromised. And
100%.
And I think that with the Epstein case, with an independent congressional commission, we just might have a shot at flushing this unbelievable corruption and rot out of our political system. That's what I'm hoping for.
What if you had to guess, what percentage of DC politicians would you speculate? You might find this offensive, but what percentage of them are pedophiles, you think?
I don't know. I with the Franklin scandal and also with the Epstein scandal, there's certainly a demand for sure. But there are other ways that people can get, like Mike Johnson. He's got, and this is kind of cringeworthy, he's got Covenant Eyes on. It's a program on his iPhone, and his 17-year-old son has Covenant Eyes on his phone, and that gives them the ability to monitor each other's consumption of pornography. So right there, that's very weird. And if Mike,
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Covenant Eyes is an app that monitors product. So Mike Johnson can see if his son is looking at porn.
and his son can see if he's looking at porn.
So obviously they both had a problem. They're keeping each other in check.
But here's the thing with our cyber abilities, with the intelligence services, if he's attracted to macabre pornography or child abuse material, he's definitely compromised for sure.
But isn't it even an extra dimension that him and his son are watching over each other's pornography consumption about uncovetous sexual behavior? I mean, that's a triple right there.
And he's the third most powerful man in our country constitutionally. So that's.
How did you find this out? Is he open about this, or was this some journalistic digging?
Rolling Stone initially reported it, and it's subsequently been reported by other publications too. So
okay. All right.
I never heard that. I mean, I'm in shock. Well, I'm not in shock because I think that everything they do is to cover their bad behavior, everything they care about. Obviously, it has nothing to do with the voting public.
Well, Tim Burchett, he's a federal legislator from Tennessee. He's in the House. He came out about a year and a half ago and said, my colleagues are being compromised in honey traps. And for a sitting U.S. congressman to make that kind of admission is mind-boggling. There's a guy with a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And he is behind. Massey has proposed this bill. It's 581 or Resolution 581 that is going to mandate an investigation into Epstein, which Johnson snuffed out, but it'll occur in September when Congress comes back. There's 34 representatives that are co-sponsoring it. So that's huge. That we've got people that have come aboard that are in the Congress, and I think that would be an indication that they're not compromised. So not everyone is compromised.
Well, I mean, until the whole Trump revolution, it was don't rock the boat because they were all comfortable with it. But the MAGA people came in, and that was one of their, our number one concerns was the sex thing, the pedophile abuse thing worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I supported Trump and voted for Trump, which is why I was kind of upset about the Binder Gate and Pam Bondi saying, I mean, let me ask you this real quick. There is a list, right, Nick? I mean, you published on Gawker. There does exist a list because when you listen to Bondi and crew, now there's...
I think Nick is saying he had the black book.
And the logs.
Well, yeah, I mean, there isn't a list like it was the Jeffrey Epstein travel agency, and there's a list of people on his refrigerator with a magnet. It's not that way. But if you know the black book, the guy who ripped off Epstein's house manager, Alfredo Rodriguez, ripped off the black book. And he was trying to sell it to one of the attorneys representing some victims. And the attorney called the FBI, and the FBI did a sting. And Rodriguez called it the Grail. And it is a grail to a certain degree because a lot of there's a lot of people in there that aren't perpetrators, but there's a lot of people that in there that are perpetrators. And then there's a lot of victims too. And when I first got it in 2012, as I said, I started calling victims, and a lot of them wouldn't talk to me, which I'm used to, but then they were telling me about being flown around and then also on Epstein's Island. So that is really, I mean, that's very much like the Franklin scandal. And
yeah, who are the victims?
The victims with Epstein, a lot of them are lower socioeconomic kids in Florida.
Working class,
lower socioeconomic. But then Epstein was buying children in Eastern Europe. I mean, not renting them, but he was actually buying them in Eastern Europe. So
What do you mean by Eastern Europe? What are you specifically referring to?
Yugoslavia, Romania, what we used to call Eastern Europe. And
What?
that, I don't know, Jean-Luc Brunel, who ran this quote unquote modeling agency with Jeffrey Epstein, was called MC Squared. They had some ability with the government to get visas for these girls. I don't know how they did it. I've looked into it. I'm still not quite sure how they were able to do it.
We can figure it out. But
Well, I think the prefix MI says it all.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. You're talking about MI6.
Yeah, because they're always trying to bury the royal family's involvement in all this.
Well, I think, okay, so I've been at this for like 22, 23 years, and I've been told by people in intelligence that the three countries that are the greatest practitioners of blackmail are the US, Israel, and the UK. But I know that Russia isn't far behind in that mix, because the KGB and subsequent Russian intelligence agencies have definitely deployed blackmail all over. But
always.
But it's blackmail is an integral part of our political system, going back to like the founding fathers. Alexander Hamilton was having an affair with a 23-year-old who was married, and her husband was blackmailing Alexander Hamilton. And there was this muckraking journalist that came along, and Hamilton and Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, had a lot of antipathy towards each other. They did not like each other at all. So the muckraker outed Hamilton having an affair, and then the muckraker thought that Jefferson would give him a place in his administration. And when Jefferson didn't, he outed Jefferson for having sex with one of his slaves, Sally Hemings, which actually DNA tests have shown that to be the case. So
yes,
sexual blackmail goes all the way back to the beginning of our republic. And
before then.
And it's just been an integral part of
it kind of goes back to I think it goes back to the establishment of all power. Because how else would they get there?
But now we have pinhole cameras, and that makes it so much easier to blackmail people. With the technology that we have now, I think it's relatively easy to blackmail people.
Well, Kathy O'Brien told me, she's a friend, and she told me that the worst things in the world happen when Congress goes on recess. And that's when the lobbyists take them and ply them with food, liquor, and all kinds of sinful things. And, they're on a hedonistic holiday. And that's where all of our laws come from, is that criminal behavior that they have at their parties. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And I mean, they get drunk enough and drugged up enough, they'll do anything. And they have done anything.
Well, that's how this works, is like Craig Spence from the Franklin scandal used to have political parties where power brokers would be invited, senators, people in the media, captains of industry, people in the administration, and he would ply them with alcohol for probably 5 or 6 hours or whatever. It would start out as like a DC cocktail party. But then at 10 or 11, something inappropriate would happen. There'd be something sexually inappropriate. Someone would fire up a joint or break out coke. And a lot of people that wanted no part of that would split, but then the people that stayed would be compromised for sure.
Right. Just like a Diddy party.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then if they stayed after midnight, even worse things happened.
Well, I have heard of sadism to these victims, both in the Franklin scandal and also in the Epstein scandal too. Some of these guys 100%. Like to be sadistic to little kids. I mean, that's what.
Yeah, they do.
It's pretty horrible. And
I remember Paul Bonacci's testimony of how they really enjoyed being in a circle and stuffing large objects into the 14-year-old boys' anuses. And, they really, really enjoyed that, especially when they were screaming and bleeding. They really enjoyed that.
I am not familiar with that story, but I am familiar with
His
there's
testimony.
been unbelievable. I mean, Paul Benassi, according to his testimony, was subjected to unbelievable sadism, and it's really amazing. A lot of those, the thing about it is, and this is what the mainstream media really lacks integrity. But
Oh, yeah.
the thing is,
Well, they all go to the parties
they do
too.
go to the
Exactly.
parties. No one in the mainstream media has really delved into human traffickers are vicious people. They're
Oh my God.
they're psychopaths, and the mainstream media has never really portrayed how psychopathic these people are.
No.
Epstein was
Well, they don't portray it how psychopathic and homicidal Hamas is either. The October 7th thing, they blow that off like, oh, they invaded, and they have censored the evidence of what they actually did, which is worse than what Nazis did, and they just blow that off. So it's all the same thing. It seems to be all to protect a really rotten, evil bunch, and they're all the same. And they haven't changed since the Franklin School either much, have they?
no. Actually, I think it's gotten worse from my perspective. I think the blackmail has gotten much more systemic. And when I was running the Franklin scandal, I was able to get to one of the blackmail photographers. And given his former vocation, he's not the paragon of ethics or morality, but I think he was being honest with me. Early on, he was being honest, and then I think he kind of swerved off into dishonesty. But I was trying to get my mind around it. And I said, well, because you don't read books, there's no books about this. Well, now there is, the Franklin scandal, but prior to that, there really wasn't a book about it. And I said, how does this work? And he said, once you're compromised, it's like you're on a yacht. And it's a beautiful yacht, and it's a beautiful day. And you can have anything you want on the yacht. But if you decide to get off the yacht, the people on the yacht are going to make sure that you drown. So there's zero incentive to get off that. And actually, being on the yacht is a good career move for a lot of people.
Yeah.
The former Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert.
Oh, yeah.
Like Mike.
Good old Dennis.
He was, he had been a high school wrestling coach and also taught at a high school. And he had been a pederast going back 30 or 40 years. And his rise in the House of Representatives was meteoric. And according to Sibel Edmonds, she was an FBI whistleblower. The FBI knew about his shadow life when he was Speaker of the House. So I think that was a case where the FBI was fully aware of what Dennis Hastert was up to. But as long as he was a strong arm specialist, and he really pushed the Iraq War very hard.
Yes.
And I think that was his impetus, was probably because he was blackmailed. But I'm sure that being blackmailed was a good career move for him, unfortunately.
Well, it's like Hollywood, isn't it, Mom? The structure of Hollywood is if there is sort of pressure to do sort of things, or they have blackmail, there is a payoff. It's not like you're blackmailed and you're living in a hut. Like, you'll rise to the top. You'll have money.
Well, if you don't, you'll be finished.
Right. So it's kind of like a choice. Like, do I want to be wealthy or dead?
Like you get a choice. It's like you do this or you're gone.
Right.
Your career's over. So
this is a sickness of human nature, it seems to me.
It's a sickness of power.
Yeah.
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 And it seems that the people who, I'm not talking about the people I know that are now in our government and went there to fight this and solve it and cure it, because sometimes it has to get really, really ugly before people will decide to take it into their own hands and make the changes that need to happen, instead of sitting back thinking that their representatives are going to do it, or that they're never going to do it, because it takes $1 billion to get enough money to run a campaign. That doesn't come from grassroots ever. So all of our representatives are not really our representatives. They're representatives of lobbies or private enterprise. So American people didn't want to see that, but I think more and more they are seeing it, and they want to do something to stop it. And child trafficking, child death, child abuse, child sacrifice by, just a satanic bunch. They really are. They really do exist, don't they? People blow it off and go, oh gosh, that's crazy to say that there is a satanic cult that sacrifices children. Where do you stand with that?
Well, there's certainly ritual abuse exists, although Wikipedia says it doesn't. Ritual abuse
Right.
definitely exists. And we saw that in the Franklin scandal, and we've seen that in other scandals. But just the sheer number of Americans that are molested, according to the Centers for Disease Control, 25% of underage girls and 5% of underage boys are molested. Now, people in the field think it's slightly conservative for underage girls and very conservative for underage boys. But if you just go with the CDC numbers, there's over 50 million Americans that have been molested. And the Department of Health and Human Services commissioned a study that found that 240,000 to 325,000 women and children are sexually trafficked in the United States every year. And according to the Federal Human Trafficking Report of 2023, the last one, there was only 664 people charged with child trafficking. So if you go with the smallest number from the Department of Health and Human Services, which is 240,000, and only 664 people are charged, it really shows how our society is not protecting our children. And there's millions of hours of child abuse material on the internet. And last year there were 1,375 people convicted of it, of making it and of distributing it. So there again, less than 1%. And one of the reasons why Epstein Justice is so important, and getting justice for these Epstein victims, is that if we allow the Department of Justice to cover up a proven trafficking network, the Epstein network, a proven trafficking network, we're going to send a message to millions of people that have been molested, have been trafficked, that they have no voice and no hope for justice if they see this. So,
well, they've already done that. I mean, that's where we're at. They've already done that. And to a lot of those people, they're very, very upset with Trump and what he's done with saying,
Kathy Phillips, FaceTime video.
There's Trump on the phone. Okay.
No, that's Kathy Phillips. But,
you were
Kathy
talking about Trump.
O'Brien. But, what I was going to say, it's more than, it is systematic, but it's international, isn't it? That's the important thing.
Yes. But people think that the United States is more pristine when it comes to trafficking. But the numbers that I just showed you, I mean, the United States is like a trafficking paradise. I mean, compared to like Thailand or these other places that people go to. I mean, there's a lot more child abuse that seems to be going on in the United States than anywhere else, which is very, very shocking to me.
The United States is like one of the world hubs of child sexual slavery.
100%. And that's very crazy to me because, it's a Christian nation and whatnot, liberty, all the values that we have as Americans. That is the antithesis of it. And I just want to ask real quick, with the CIA, with Mossad, with MI6, and probably every other intelligence agency, let's be honest. But those three, right? You're saying
All
that
Five Eyes. It's all Five Eyes.
they're working together, they're sharing intelligence. This does seem to be systemic of how power operates. My question to you is, I know you have Epstein Justice and that kind of stuff, but like really, how do we fight this if it's in every
Well,
world?
he has a plan. I wanted to get to that. You had a plan, right?
That's where I
Epstein
was-
Justice is the plan. And I'll
Okay.
answer Jake's question, because people ask me all the time, was Epstein part of the Mossad? And I believe that he very well might have been part of the Mossad.
Ever feel like your brain is stuck in neutral even though you've eaten right and you work out? Surprise! It could be parasites hitchhiking in your body. Dr. Alan McDonald, an actual scientist, not some TikTok quack, found a link between chronic parasites and serious brain disease like MS. These suckers can mess with your nerves, your memory, and your mood. That's why I do a full body parasite cleanse at least once or twice a year. All you do is fill out a quick form and they will ship you a 3-month supply. No drama. My girlfriend's a comedian and her sister's a comedian too. Well, her sister was walking across the kitchen floor, doubled over in pain, agony, and she had a dress on, I guess. But anyway, my friend said a great big old parasite found its way out of her rectum.
Okay.
Said it looked right at her and then died. Head to twc.health/RB and use the code RB to save $60 off plus free shipping. Cleanse out your body today.
But I don't believe, and some CIA guys believe, could have confirmed this for me. I don't believe that the CIA would let the Mossad compromise American politicians on American soil without getting a cut of that intelligence. With the Mossad,
That's right. And and MI6 would not let the CIA do it either without their compliance.
Yeah.
So I think it's endemic, and also it's sanctioned at the highest level. With the Epstein scandal, the neutron that went into the plutonium was a 14-year-old girl who told her stepmother that she'd been molested by Jeffrey Epstein. And her stepmother brought her to the Palm Beach Police Department. And she was from a lower socioeconomic family. And she described the interior of Jeffrey Epstein's home and also his anatomy. So the police felt like she rang of authenticity, and they started an investigation. And the Palm Beach Police Department was able to identify 23 victims. Wow. But it initially was going to indict Jeffrey Epstein on 5 counts, 4 counts of unlawful sexual activity with a minor and 1 count of lewd and lascivious molestation, which could have put Jeffrey Epstein in prison for a very long time. But they knew of a lot of other victims. This is just what they were going to start with. And that case was taken away from them and given to a grand jury. And generally, grand juries in Florida are just reserved for murder cases. So something was up. And I don't know if your audience is familiar with how grand juries work. People think when they hear grand jury, it's like the gods of jurisprudence have spoken. But actually, with a grand jury, a special prosecutor is chosen to present evidence to the grand jurors. And grand jurors are just citizens that have shown up for jury duty and been found to a grand jury. So the special prosecutor...
Citizens that couldn't get out of jury duty.
And it's one-sided evidence,
it's
right?
Totally, The special prosecutor calls the witnesses. The special prosecutor shows the grand jurors the evidence. So there's a famous quip by a New York Supreme Court justice that said special prosecutors have so much power over grand juries that they could get them to indict a ham sandwich. And that's what happened with the Franklin grand juries, and that's what happened with the Epstein grand jury. That grand jury found that Epstein hadn't molested a single child. And I got the transcripts of that grand jury. And although law enforcement knew of at least 23 victims, they only called 2. Lana Belilovic was the special prosecutor, and she only called 2. And one had been molested by Jeffrey Epstein when she was 14, and she was now 16. And one had been molested by Jeffrey Epstein multiple times when she was 16, and she was now 18. And the special prosecutor was calling the victims prostitutes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and just skewered them. So that grand jury, and it only called 2 victims and just destroyed them. And that grand jury then said that Jeffrey Epstein hadn't molested a single child. And then what happened, one of the real heroes in this story is Michael Ryder. He was the Palm Beach police chief, and he went to the Department of Justice, Southern District, Florida, and said, you guys have got to investigate this. This is one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in modern times. So Alexander Acosta was the U.S. attorney for Southern Florida. He acted like he was going to impanel a grand jury and get to the bottom of this. And at this point, the feds had a list of 34 victims. But I've got that list, but they knew of 40. And then all of a sudden there was radio silence from the Department of Justice. And what was happening was Anne-Marie Villafana, the assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, and Jay Lefkowitz, one of the big shot attorneys that represented Epstein, they were making this really dirty deal. And I've got emails between those two. And the deal that they cooked up was so dirty that Anne-Marie Villafana said to Jay Lefkowitz, there's a magistrate that will sign off on this. Magistrates are just one notch below judges in the judiciary, and they can pretty much do anything that a judge can. So on the sly, they had this magistrate sign off. They said, there's one magistrate, and he's going to be here on Monday. We got to get this done. So he signed off on it, and then the feds sealed it. So no one could look at it. And some attorneys that were representing the victims and also the Palm Beach Post appealed that. And the judge in the case, Kenneth Mera from Palm Beach, said that that documentation should be unsealed. And then the feds appealed that. And then ultimately the 11th Circuit said unseal it. And it was unsealed. And what it did is it gave blanket immunity to all of the co-conspirators and perpetrators in the Epstein network, all of them.
Wow.
And also, the Victim Crimes Rights Act is a federal law. And basically what it says is victims have to be apprised of the adjudication of their perpetrators. And they actually get to confront their perpetrators. So the feds never did that. That's why one of the reasons why they sealed it. So the feds contravened the Victim Rights Crime Act and also gave blanket immunity to all these perpetrators. It was just really horrible, really horrible. And then the feds, because it had contravened that Victims' Rights Act, had the state make a deal with Epstein. And the deal was he had to be in jail, county jail, for 18 months. He did 13, and he was let out during the day to molest little girls. So that was justice for Jeffrey Epstein in 2007.
Jesus Christ. So depressing.
That's, yeah.
And Alexander Acosta was the U.S. attorney for the Southern District at that time. And he was also Trump's labor secretary. And when he was coming in and being vetted by the Trump administration, he said, he was asked, why did you go so light on Epstein? And Acosta said, I was told that Epstein was intelligence and that I had to back down, that it was above my pay grade.
Yeah.
And
you know that's what they did. He was protected at the highest levels of the CIA and the FBI, just like Comey and Hillary Clinton and Obama have been in their crimes. I mean, all the criminals, they're the only ones who get any protection under the law. Certainly the victims and the citizens, especially the taxpayers, get no representation or protection under the law. It's unbelievable. It's all upside down or backward day every day.
Well, I think the telling thing is, and I looked into this, I've talked to some legal scholars, There's only two people in the country, in the government, that can tell a U.S. attorney to back down. One is the attorney general and one is the president. And at that time, the attorney general was Alberto Gonzales and the president was Bush II. So there's no way a U.S. attorney is going to go out on a limb and cover up a pedophile network unless his boss says okay. And Alberto Gonzales isn't going to do that.
Was Bush 1 and Bush 2, were they ever implicated in any way in the Boys Town thing? Because I heard that they were.
They were implicated by one victim, and that was really the way that played out was really egregious because of how, as I said earlier, Alicia Owen getting 9 to 15 years, and basically the state and feds said that not a single child had been abused. And if you go to Wikipedia, it says that not a single child had been abused. And we've tried to change that, but intelligence is on Wikipedia and they will not let us change
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
go ahead.
but Bush Sr. ran the CIA. Let me forget that.
And
yeah.
And this is kind of an interesting fact. William Barr was Bush I's attorney general that covered up the Franklin scandal, and he was Trump's attorney general that covered up the Epstein scandal.
Yep.
And
100%.
And you see these guys that are really dirty just get recycled and recycled and recycled.
No, that's why I say they're the very same people all the way through, from Franklin to Epstein. They never lose their jobs or get confronted, and they never have any accountability for the things they do. Well, I guess because they're intelligence.
Or they're...
I guess the only thing intelligence can come up with is to use children to blackmail people to keep their power. I guess that's the only thing they can think of.
Well, power only seeks to perpetuate itself. And unfortunately, we have... regardless of whether they're American or Chinese or Ugandan, unfortunately, the bad ones rise to the top because they're ruthless. They're willing to do just about anything it takes to get that kind of power. Whereas good people don't really, they're not willing to cheat, lie, and steal to get ahead in life. But our politicians are, unfortunately. A lot of them, I should say.
Well, good people, I think what's happening is an awakening thing where good people realize, hey, we do have laws. We could try following the laws for a change.
I think we're seeing that right now. We're seeing that right now. Pam Bondi in February said that she was going to release the Epstein files. And a couple of days later, she released like a nothing sandwich. I released more incriminating information in 2015 than she did in 2025. And then
that's Binder referenced earlier. Yeah, it was weird.
The Binder, yes. And then she got herself into a deeper hole when she said that the files were going to be released, but anything that's related to national security will be redacted. So now she has to tell us what a bunch of child molesters have to do with, with national security.
Well, there you go. That's what I thought. Well, I'm glad she said that because that's bingo. A bunch of child molesters have everything to do with our national security.
But here's where she lied, and this is really unfortunate because the morning after Epstein was arrested, the FBI opened his safe. And they pulled out lots of discs and hard drives. There was lots of child abuse material in that safe.
She said that.
Well, no. The New York Times and Business Insider reported it the next morning. And so she's kind of implying that they're just looking at it now, which is not the truth because they were looking at it as soon as they pulled it out of Epstein's safe that morning. I'm sure that they did double shifts just to see what Epstein had.
Well, they had to fill up some burn bags with it.
Well, but we don't really need, the thing about it is, we don't need the Epstein files we don't to go after these perpetrators. We just need people to
No.
we just need people to follow the law, because there were
Right.
there was a New York Times article. It was a full page article, and it named Ghislaine Maxwell, Sarah Kellen, Leslie Groff, Adriana Ross, and Nadia Marcinkova, and Haley Robson being pimps for Jeffrey Epstein. And Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison now, and as appalling as it is, she might be working out some kind of deal with the government, even though she's evil. But we could go after Sarah Kellen, Leslie Groff, Adriana Ross, and Nadia Marcinkova. We could charge them with multiple counts of child trafficking. They knew all about Jeffrey Epstein's network, and they helped facilitate it. We could go after them and charge them with multiple counts of child trafficking, and they would roll over on the perps. I mean, that's how it's done with the mafia. And then there's hundreds of victims that could testify. So we don't need a smoking gun like video. We just need the Department of Justice to act correctly. I mean, that's what we need. And then we could take care of
Do their job, as you said. And they're not it doesn't seem that Bondi and the DOJ at this point are doing their job. Maybe we're not apprised.
Can you imagine her sitting there on top of all of those ops? What's she going to do? I mean, probably everything she does, they stop or block her.
Yeah.
Well,
and there's a lot of local judges that think they have the power of the universe in their pen to stop things.
The thing with that is the FBI on July 6th released a very strange document, and no one would sign it. It was the Department of Justice and FBI both, and no one signed it. No one's going to take the fall for it. It said there's a couple of things in it that I agree with. It said that there were 300 gigabytes taken from impounded from Jeffrey Epstein. I agree with that. It said that there were over 1,000 victims of Epstein, and I agree with that. But here's where it gets really bad. I mean, it says that Epstein acted alone, and that's just not true. And it also says that Epstein didn't engage in blackmail, and that's just not true. But I mean, when I've spoken at a number of child trafficking conferences. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation has a conference, like an international summit every year. And I've spoken at 3 of those, and I've spoken at other conferences. And I've gotten to know the dynamics of this pretty well. And the best thing you can say to a child or a victim of child sexual abuse or a victim of sexual assault is, I believe you. The worst thing you can say is, I don't believe you. And with that document, our government said to hundreds of girls, or now young women, we don't believe you. And that's really, really an abomination.
Sinister.
It is. It's, so horrible, so satanic. I mean, it's just evil. Who do you think, let's make some conjecture because I want to see. Who do you think sits atop of this whole thing?
I've asked that question to myself a million times, and I've been asked that question a million times. I don't know. I mean, I believe that there's obviously some shadowy group that's part of intelligence, probably got their hooks into the FBI and also the Department of Justice that is responsible. I believe that I guess you could call them shadow masters, because we don't really know who they are.
No, we don't know any of their names, do we?
And the goal of our shadow masters is to be anonymous. And unfortunately, and I think that financial people are part of that too. The billionaires. I mean, I'm sure that there are billionaires that are part of that group also, and they just exercise an enormous amount of power over us. But I think that's changing. I think people are waking up. I really do, and I'm hoping that within the next year we're going to see some major changes. I'm really hoping that.
I'm hoping too. I mean, I see, I see changes all over because I'm always searching, for information, and I see a lot of things being disrupted and changed. But I just don't think people are quite prepared for the whole story. But I do think it'll come out, and I do think that a lot of it has been stopped at the source, and I think Trump's dealt with a lot of it at the top.
Well, we've got Epstein Justice. That's the organization that I founded. That's the organization that Audra is part of. And what we want is a congressional commission, independent congressional commission,
Yes,
as I said, to investigate this. And if we can get that, I mean, we can shame our
right.
politicians into doing this.
And they should be shamed.
Mike Johnson, when he came out and said that he's going to adjourn Congress early, at Epstein Justice, we have a legislator of the week, and we put their name, with their face and their number there, and we encourage people to call them. And last week, Mike Johnson was the legislator of the week. So we can, it's people have been conditioned to believe that they don't have any power. And
Yep.
we the people can have power. We just have to come together. And I think that this is an issue when the government is aiding, abetting child trafficking and children are getting abused with impunity. I think that this is an issue that can bring both the left and the right together. The left,
I think so too. It has to
yeah,
happen. It has to happen. But it seems that, the whole brainwashing thing that goes along with, it's a grooming thing. It's a brainwashing, grooming thing of the entire
yes.
populace to not see it.
Well,
Aren't we all being groomed by the media to look the other way?
well, as I said, the media has been horrific here. I mean, the media hasn't called. I'm not aware of a media outlet calling for justice in the
Never.
in the Epstein case. I'm not aware of one. And the media has, I think, made the Republicans hate the Democrats and vice versa. I mean, I think that the
Yep.
media has caused that chasm. And
I do too.
and it's basically it's the old story of divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's what they're really ramping up. They really think they're going to, get the big reward on the divide and conquer when nobody stands up for anybody. You remember the old thing about Germany? It said they came for I can't remember how it goes. They came for the people in red hats, and I didn't wear a red hat, so I said nothing, and all the way down the
yeah,
line till they came for me and there was nobody left to stand up for me. Well, that is the politics that they're practicing, along with the grooming in the schools and everything else, to make pedophilia itself look normal so they can get themselves off the hook. At the very top, they're letting it. At the very top of every political group and every multinational corporation as well, and every bank. Let's get real. Jeffrey Epstein did a lot of work on behalf of banks and dissolving the sovereignty of nations for banks. And he knew how to twist every law against human beings, and he did it for the benefit of power, and all power is complicit in everything he did. It wasn't just him and a group of his tribal fellows. It was the whole damn system, the whole world. And they thought they had it all sewed up. They really, really did. But now I think it's up to us to prove that they didn't. And there are enough survivors that you can actually turn into warriors, because that's what survivors do.
well, that's what Epstein Justice is about. There are
Good.
survivors in our organization, and actually, there's a number of survivors in our organization, and they have the will and the courage to fight this
Yes,
fight.
they do.
We just need, at this point, we need people to come to sign up for our webinars, and we need donations too. We're always, evil always has all the money.
Yeah, they do. That's how they get it.
Yeah.
And evil always has the money. And when you get into money and Epstein, okay, so Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney in 1991. He was the CEO of L Brands, which owned Victoria's Secret and Abercrombie Fitch and other very popular clothing lines. And Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein the keys to his kingdom. I mean, power of attorney, you can do it. Epstein could do whatever he wanted with Les Wexner's $1 billion or $2 billion, or I guess now it's $4 billion. And this is actually, it's kind of humorous. It's tragic, but it's somewhat humorous. So Vanity Fair said, and I'm not making this up. Vanity Fair, which is a relatively sophisticated magazine, said that Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney over his vast fortune because he was lonely. I mean,
What a brilliant insight.
I mean, the difference.
They do have some of the more insightful.
We know why he did it. We know why he did it.
The difference between fact and fiction is fiction has to make some sense. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the contempt that's written with that, like, oh, the reader is stupid enough to believe this. The contempt for the reader is unbelievable. But the other stuff that they were doing, Wexner and Epstein at his New Mexico compound, I mean, they were doing Nazi-like experiments on, aborted fetuses to make themselves live longer too, and that's never included in. They went to the zenith of evil and ego.
Well, I do know Juliet Bryant has said, I've interviewed her a few times. Juliet Bryant has said that she was at the New Mexico place and then she went unconscious. I don't know why, but she woke up and she was in like an operating room and they were harvesting her ovums. And
yeah, they like the eggs.
Epstein and Maxwell actually tried to get Virginia Giuffre to carry a child, to be a breeder. So that's going on. In 1996, Dolly the sheep was cloned. And I just knew at that point, even before I got into all this crazy stuff, I just thought to myself, there's got to be megalomaniac billionaires out there cloning themselves. Because if you can clone a sheep, you can clone a human. It's pretty easy. Mm-hmm. And it takes about $1.5 million to clone a human. So it's relatively easy. Just have to take the DNA out of the egg and insert the DNA that you want and then give it electrical shock. And then that starts the mitosis, the cell splitting. So
crazy.
It's pretty easy to clone somebody.
I mean, the fact that they would, I mean, just that kind of thinking is that they would regard, well, I do think that they regarded all of the working class as potential prey. I mean, the daughters as potential prey, but, they also had their boys, they also ran boys and they also raped and trafficked boys. And I get really upset when they leave that out of everything.
Well, that was the Franklin scandal. It was Republicans trafficking little boys, and Epstein is Democrats trafficking little girls.
Thank you.
And I mean, that seems to be the real partisan divide. I mean, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we're talking about money and Vanity Fair. Leon Black, who was head of Apollo, was a billionaire. Epstein was also providing him with minors. He gave Jeffrey Epstein $160 million. And now multiple media outlets reported this. Leon Black
He was wrong.
gave Jeffrey Epstein $160 million because Jeffrey Epstein was helping him with his taxes.
I thought he was lonely. This changes.
No, that was somebody else.
No, I know. I'm joking.
My
This
God.
we know why.
I
he
mean,
gave him
a guy
money.
like Leon Black has a battalion of accountants. But, you know, I initially thought it was all blackmail. But I've come to think definitely blackmail. But I think Epstein was laundering money, dirty money from the CIA or whatever.
That's what I think.
I think that
That's what it was.
I think he was a huge laundromat, and he took his cut,
Yeah, that's what I think.
I
too.
think so
which
too.
was
I think
substantial.
it was far more than, it was just all the criminal enterprises that the CIA and all the Five Eyes and all the intelligence. I mean, that's just where all the criminals are. And all you have to do is call yourself a contractor or somebody in intelligence. And, it's like, you have a pass for everything. You're never going to be arrested. You're never going to be called on the carpet.
Everything's covered by national security when you got a pass.
The national security get out of jail free card gets played quite often, and it was played with Epstein, for sure. I mean, Alexander Acosta was told to back away because he was intelligent. So the CIA would have invariably, if Acosta had rebelled, I think the CIA would have invariably had to play its get out of jail free card.
Yeah, he would have had to have shot himself several times in the back of the head, as they so often do.
The Clinton suicide. Can I say something real quick, Mom? Do you mind?
Go for it.
I just want to point out a really important note, and not to, it's my bias making me do this, but I still think it's important. The divide and conquer strategy, because the American people, actually the world population, like you said, with EpsteinJustice.org, we do have power. So it's very important to the people, the evil people in power that are trafficking in children, to keep us divided. And that is one of the things that we do here on the Roseanne Barr podcast, is we always fight against these tropes or these things that divide us. We get a lot of heat for it. But just be careful when you're mad at a certain group or a religious affiliation or a country. You are being played. And me and my mom want you to understand that we have to focus, like my mom always says, the people at the top that are actually responsible for all the evil. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you for letting me do it.
Thanks, Jake.
But it's so funny how so many of the people, well, we're talking about anti-Semitism because we're Jews.
One of many things. That's one thing. But it happens on every faith.
But it is one of the interesting things because the people leveling the charges against the Jews are themselves complicit in a far huger way than the Jews will ever be. And I'm talking about the Catholic Church, the UN, Octagon in Switzerland, and Islam itself. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're infiltrated.
It really disgusts me, and how easy it is for everybody to go down the same old medieval pathways that end in destruction of all, well, they're called Christian democracies, which is what they are, but that's the takedown of every Christian democracy, and people don't seem to see that. And it makes me very angry. And, the fact that they tried to turn this into being Israel operation, or as Clandis Owen says, Israel's operation, really pisses me off because, I know you don't want to say, but I will. The fucking royal family of England is complicit in Epstein Island. And, the prince was there. Come on.
Andrew.
They don't want us to see all the way to the top. They don't want us to look at Catholic charities and the trafficking of children across our borders, which they alone are responsible for. They only want they want to farm our minds so that we play into their, what I call the Fourth Reich. And it is of a fascist world takeover, and they got to get rid of America because we stand in their way. So that's why I'm happy to hear that there are Americans waking up that know that America is all that stands in the way of worldwide fascism, and that they know that we have the laws to protect ourselves and the world from it. All we have to do is work it, like they say in AA. It works if you work it, and we've got to work it.
Well said.
The United States has something that's really beautiful that a lot of countries don't have. we have the First Amendment.
That's
And all
right.
our freedoms are essentially predicated on the First Amendment.
Like the Second Amendment is to protect the First
Yes.
Amendment. Come on, right?
And we have to come together as Americans. I mean, our leaders are going to take us off a cliff.
That's
I
right.
really believe
They
that.
want to. They're getting paid to do it.
During the,
Or they're blackmailed.
yeah, it's something that but we have an opportunity. I mean, I've been at this for 22 years. I published I spent 7 years on the Franklin scandal. I traveled thousands of miles, spent all my money. I mean, I published it and nothing happened. Nobody wanted to touch it. And now with Epstein, I am seeing real change, real traction. I mean, we even have at this point one U.S. congressman that's willing to vote with us or vote for a congressional commission. And I think that there's going to be a number of them that follow him shortly. So
I think so too.
I really believe, because there's been times in this battle over the last 22 years where I've been eating a lot of chicken pot pies and been fairly broke. It's kind of amazing I've been able to make a living as a writer all these years. I don't know how, but I have been. But I see some real traction now. And there have been times when I've been so despondent over this, where I thought all this work that I've done was never going to reap any justice. But now I'm starting to see it. And with this current issue with Epstein, I think we can bring the right and the left together. And yes,
we need to bring the right and left together to the right place, not being all over the place about other countries and this and that and the other, but our country right here, the center, the hub of child sex slavery, our country, our children right here. And I've never done this before on my podcast because I just didn't feel right about it, but I do feel right about asking my viewers to get involved and send contributions to this wonderful organization and be part of it. Educate yourself, get involved to work the laws of the United States of America, and get involved in deciding to care about the lives of children, and get involved and stay involved. And I have been for so many decades, and I'm so glad that I feel that there's finally movement too. So I want you to say again, what is the name? It's the
EpsteinJustice.com. It's pretty easy to remember. Go to EpsteinJustice.com and register for our webinars. Donations are really helpful. There's a change.org petition up that you can sign to. That would be great. And together, we can do this. Like I said, I'm really just happy with how things are coming together for us. I mean, we still have a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but I'm seeing change now. And I'm seeing the left and the right come together over this issue. And it's really wonderful. And people are starting to come to Epstein Justice and actually register for our webinars. And because together we can do this. I mean,
yes,
we don't have to take shit like we've been taking it. I mean, we don't have to do it.
I just always imagine this great big, like we said, Republicans traffic boys and Democrats traffic girls. So it doesn't matter how you vote. It's like there are so many victims out there, and they're going through so much pain. I know a lot of people who are drug addicts, who are alcoholics, who are in some kind of trouble, who are even in prison because of being molested. You can take some power back by helping to do the right thing, by helping to be part of the change that this man has worked so hard for, and the change that Dr. Lois Lee, Audra, Kathy O'Brien, and Mary Flynn, so many people in America who stood up from their couch and said, that's enough. I have to do something. Please be one of those people.
And I think if you could just take one thing out of society, if you took child abuse out of society, the prisons wouldn't be filled, the psychiatric hospitals wouldn't be filled. I mean, our society would look. I mean, the percentage of people in prison that have been sexually abused is inordinate, and same with psychiatric hospitals too. So we need. I mean, we're not going to be able to eradicate all of the child abuse here, but we're going to be able. We got to start at the top. We got to make sure that the government isn't involved in it, and then we can. There's other vistas that we can go to and conquer.
We got to cut the head off.
That's really important. We just, as I said earlier, people have to do their jobs. There can't be cover up of child sexual abuse. I mean, and at the local level,
And we need to have a law passed that the CIA and the FBI cannot use children in blackmail operations. I mean, we've passed a lot of laws like that, and it isn't out of the question, and it's ultimate sanity for the world. And we need to pass those laws.
we need to enforce those laws. You know, I mean, there are so many laws that.
Well, we need to pass a law that if the laws aren't enforced, you're going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have to have a law that anyone who doesn't enforce the law is in deep shit.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to sign that. I believe
Me
that.
too.
I have just seen so much judicial and law enforcement corruption over the last 22 years, and it's really it's appalling. I'm glad that I'm still appalled by it, so I'm not completely desensitized by it.
Me too. I'm glad I'm still appalled too, and I'm
Me
glad I'm
too.
still mad. I've seen so many people go, I tried, but there's nothing we can do. Well, there sure is.
That's it. And
There's everything we can do.
it's Americans just have to believe in we the people. That's all we have to do is believe in we the people and not hate people that are of different political persuasions. I mean, that's all we have to do to come together on this. And
That's it.
and
And we beat everything. We beat everything.
and we can flush the rot and perfidiousness out of our political system. We started this conversation when the Speaker of the House shuts down an investigation into a child trafficking network. It doesn't get much worse than that. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me. And yet he did that right in front of everybody. So,
Well, I'm amazed at what you told us that he and his son monitor each other's pornography consumption. I mean, oh my God, these people.
That's
These
pretty
people.
creepy. Even if you justify it off as like they're protecting whatever, there's no world where that's not creepy as hell.
no,
That's creepy as hell, and there's no justification. Can I ask you one last question? I know we're wrapping up, but Trump, Bondi, Bongino, Cash, are we are you're already I'm pretty sure you're already going to agree with me. I think we're wasting our time as Americans expecting them to step up and do it. We have to do it, right?
We have to do it.
Right?
yeah, we're not going
'Cause
to be able to. I mean, the Department of Justice and FBI released that strange document on July 6th that said that Epstein acted alone and really said, we don't believe you to hundreds of victims. And that's really bad. That's about as egregious as you can get. So yes, it's going to be up to we the people. And the thing is, I believe in Americans. I believe that we can do this. I mean,
I do.
we are an amazing society. We are a melting pot. And together we are the strongest nation, most powerful nation that's ever been. And and it's because of us Americans. So we can do this. Americans can do this.
Americans are the only hope that exists in the world for this.
Yeah.
The only hope in the world ever that it's come to this. It seems like it's meant to be. I'd love to see a great big football stadium filled with victims. And, we speak truth to power. I'd love to see that. Or a big old march of like 40 million of us.
Well, that's what Epstein Justice wants to do. We definitely plan on demonstrations for sure. We know that there's going to be some politicians that aren't going to change because they're so compromised, regardless of how much we shame them. But you get 1 million or 2 million people in Washington, D.C., and that does something. The civil rights movement wasn't an easy thing,
Right.
but we did it. Women's rights wasn't an easy thing, but we did it. Gay rights wasn't an easy thing, but we did it. Workers' rights weren't an easy thing, but we did it. And we can do that with children now. I mean, I really believe we can come together and do that with children.
God bless.
Well, let's do it.
Let's
do it. We're committed to it, and I know you are. I know a lot of people. I'm hooking people up that I know with each other. I know, like, Dr. Lee is too. We all are. And here's to 2026. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. We enjoyed having you as our guest.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been great.
Thank you, Nick, for all you do. I mean, I know you've been above party and fighting this a long time, and that's very commendable. I'm in awe. So thank you.
Hail, hail, hero.
So you see, my patience is growing thin.